Hey Internet. There's a sequence of questions I've often been asked by the curious students I've worked with over the years that usually begins, "Are you an artist?" followed by, "How do you become an artist?" And I usually respond with my typical spiel about how everyone is an artist and the only thing you need to do is simply make art and try to do it every day. And I genuinely believe that, but at the same time, I'm not being entirely honest. Because in all honesty, I have no idea how I became an artist insofar that it wasn't a conscious decision I made. I didn't wake up one day and think, I'm gonna become an artist now. No, it was more akin to a process of elimination, where I exhausted every other option that interested me first. After all, I went to college with the intention of studying Japanese and minoring in music. Art just wasn't something I took very seriously. I was never the best drawer in class, and I think the word mediocre accurately describes my work from that period. Sure, I've always liked art. I was in the art club and I took advanced placement art classes in high school, but that was mostly for the field trips and the easy A. I didn't seriously consider making a career out of it. It was just an inexpensive way to stave off boredom. Likewise, becoming an artist just seemed kind of silly. From what little I knew about art history, artists didn't really seem to lead very happy lives. The canon of masters I was familiar with at the time, like Francisco Goya, Vincent van Gogh, Frida Kahlo, Mark Rothko, and Jackson Pollock, just to name a few, all had lives that were seemingly riddled with trauma, and many tragically cut short. On top of that, news coming from the contemporary art scene only seemed to pique people's interest when some outrageous avant-garde spectacle was deemed worthy enough of public mockery and ridicule. Rarely were such artistic endeavors regarded with any kind of reverence. All of which left me thinking, why would anyone want to become an artist when no one seems to really respect what they do until they die? Furthermore, claiming that I wanted to become an artist seemed as ridiculous and improbable as becoming a rock star or famous athlete. Becoming an artist seemed like a childish dream for the young and naive, and I strived for something more practical, or more importantly, something employable. That isn't to say Japanese is the most practical subject to study, but at least it's an employable skill. In retrospect, I probably should have taken my art a little more seriously, but I didn't. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, which is to say, I have no regrets with the path I took to get here. I am where I am because it's where I need to be. I'm an artist. It is what it is, and there's no sense in fighting it anymore. But there was a time when I did fight it. So what changed? Well, at the time I was blinded by ignorance. I thought art was something made to be placed on a pedestal, both in the literal and figurative sense. For a long time I was under the impression that artists were special individuals who possessed the romantic idea of genius, and their art was precious, dare I say, divinely inspired, as if they had access to hidden knowledge the likes of which would forever remain outside of my comprehension. I was just this dude who liked to doodle, and I lacked the confidence to call what I made art. Art was just something other people did. Likewise, I thought the title of artist was a prestigious one that could only be bestowed upon an individual by others, and that self-identifying as an artist would only open myself up to scrutiny for seemingly thinking so highly of myself. Moreover, making art is a very personal practice that places the artist in a very vulnerable position. If you are being genuine in your creative expression, criticism can feel like an attack on your very existence and self-worth. And that's not even taking into consideration the talentless reactionary gatekeepers that see the artist's precarious position on the pedestal as an opportunity to make a name for themselves by knocking it over out of spite, jealousy, or boredom. But what I failed to realize is that by refusing to take responsibility for my actions and my art, I was relinquishing control of my identity to others. All I was doing was letting others decide who I was, rather than taking a definitive stance in determining my own identity. Worst of all, because I didn't take my art seriously, I wasn't able to grow as an artist and discover my stylistic voice. And truth be told, I'm still not entirely comfortable with calling myself an artist. It's such a loaded word that actually says very little about what I do, which is why I prefer the title of painter. But that just creates more confusion since I don't paint houses or walls. And I suppose that's one of the reasons I started wearing this jacket. It's a security blanket for my fragile little artist's ego. It does a better job explaining what I do than I can with words. Ultimately, I was blinded by my biases and ignorance and failed to see the meaning and purpose of why art is put on a pedestal in the first place. The pedestal isn't there to separate the art and the artist from the world they are responding to, but rather to make the ideas that are being expressed in the art accessible and visible to others by bringing attention to it. It's taking something, a thought, feeling, idea, something that was previously inaccessible, intangible, locked away in the mind of the artist, and bringing it into the world, thrusting it into the consciousness of others who have the choice to accept, reject, or respond to it. In the end, the division between art and life is an illusion, because art itself is part of life and vice versa. You don't need to be the best at what you do to consider yourself an artist. Whether or not a work of art is good or bad is largely irrelevant. Art is art. All you need is an idea and a desire to make it real so others can experience it and hopefully respond to it in ongoing dialogue to better understand what it means to be alive during this absurd moment of history we find ourselves in. Damn. In conclusion, becoming an artist is a lot easier than you think if you learn to stop thinking about it and just start doing it.